everybody, welcome to the other side of my game room for a discussion that is all about theme. Before I really get started, if you haven't done so already, please take a look at all my various social media pages as well as my Patreon. On those you'll be able to talk with and interact with me as well as vote on new videos and all sorts of other cool stuff. That said, getting right into theme. This is something that I've discussed a lot on my channel. I love seeing theme in board games of all different sorts. We've got video game themed, quote unquote. We've got themes that are historical. We've got themes that are based off of jobs, themes that are based off of specific IPs, themes that are based off of science, which is my personal favorite, and why I wanted to discuss this. The thing is that there are a lot of great science games out there, and I really enjoy them by and large. But with science games, as well as with a lot of others, the problem is that the theme can bog down the entirety of the game so much that it becomes a lot less fun. The reason that this really got brought up for me is because I recently received a Kickstarter that I had ordered, Pathogenesis. This is a really interesting card game that is essentially about the creation of life, which is really cool. It's an amazing subject. The problem is, as I was reading through the rules and tried it out and everything, this game is extremely complicated. You have a lot of very, very high-level scientific information in here that the vast majority of people really don't care about. The problem is that a game like this is really for somebody like me who is a scientist as well as a gamer. The thing is that this is a small box game. It's just a card game that has an instruction booklet this long. A decent amount of this is explaining how all of the science fits together. Not to mention the fact that the vast majority of it, I know you can't really see it too well, most of this is just pure text. And if you remember from my discussion video about rule books, I cannot stand that. It just makes it boring. And the thing is, I am a molecular biologist, and this game ended up being, it's not really boring for me because I understand it and I really appreciate it, but it was just overbearing in terms of how much the theme was overpowering everything else. And it becomes a huge problem, and that's really why I wanted to focus on science for this video, because science is complicated, and people like me who work in it and love games or whatever it happens to be, we really want to see it well done in the games. And the problem is at the same time that it's complicated, so you have to reduce it a little bit, and it can be really tough to find that happy medium. So I wanted to talk about a couple of other games. One game is one that I actually helped on, Cytosis. I helped to develop this game and made some of the mechanics for it. This is a really interesting little worker placement game that I'm going to do a review video for at some point, and effectively you are working inside of a cell. You are collecting all the different macromolecules and then using them to build hormones and receptors, proteins, all sorts of different stuff like that. The thing is that molecular biology of the cell is extremely complicated, and this game does a wonderful job at reducing it down to make it make sense. Not to mention that you have specific pathways of exporting proteins, bringing them in, and also there's a virus attack module with this as well. The fact is that this game is at its core a solid worker placement, and that's where any game has to start. You cannot have your theme be overbearing, and that's what tends to happen with a lot of scientific themed games. Another one that's a little bit on the lighter side, that is another one I really love, is Alchemists. Alchemists is more about the humorous side of academia. Again, this is a worker placement that is a good, solid worker placement at its core, but it has sort of the theme surrounding based off of academia and working with graduate students versus professors, and just sort of having little in-jokes like that, which is absolutely hilarious to me, and that's why I love this game. But again, it is a solid worker placement, and even somebody who doesn't appreciate the science or doesn't know anything about science can really enjoy it. That said, this particular science is about alchemy and things like that, and it's more of a logic-based game than anything else, but the sort of humorous jabs at academia always make me laugh whenever I read through and play this game. The last one that I wanted to talk about is another one that I got off of Kickstarter that I actually reviewed before the Kickstarter concluded. Reach down here, is the deck builder game Pathogenesis. In this game you are actively trying to attack a human immune system, and this one creates a really happy medium between something like Pathogenesis and Cytosis. So Cytosis errs on the side of keeping the science relatively simplistic, whereas Pathogenesis just goes blah, blah, blah. In Pathogenesis, you have a lot of both. You have great cards that describe extremely well the different mechanisms that the immune system uses and that pathogens use to overcome it. So it's really interesting in that sense, but at the same time, game mechanically, the way that they integrate with one another is wonderful. And you have very simple things like just having the same sort of tag. And if you match up the tags, then those are cards that can live together. That type of thing. So if you're a person who understands games, and in this case deck builder games in particular, then this is a game that you can play even if you don't appreciate the in-depth science of the immune system that is contained herein. Now, that said, that's pretty much all that I wanted to say for this, and I can stop rambling in just a little bit, but as always, I really want to hear what you guys have to think. Now, obviously, for this particular video, I was struck with the science aspect because of the Pathogenesis that I got, and just sort of saying, like, I cannot play this with regular gamers because the theme is so ingrained in it and it's so complicated the way that it's presented that nobody would enjoy it. But what are some of the other themes that you guys notice that have these same sorts of issues? Now, I know there's a lot of things like war games, for example. One that I wanted to mention from that was the Campaign for North Africa, I believe is what it is, and it's the huge, giant, infamous one where it literally takes a week of playtime, 7 days worth of playtime to finish. And you have theme boiled down to the Italian soldiers need to have extra water so they can boil pasta because they are Italian and therefore they have pasta and stuff like that. Now, again, I'm not a war gamer. I don't play a lot of games like that, so I can't really comment as to how, if at all, ludicrous that is. I've played games like Axis and Allies, Twilight Struggle, those kinds of things, and it doesn't seem to be that extensive of theming. But I'm very curious what you all have to say about it. What are games that you feel are over-themed? What do you feel are under-themed? All of that kind of thing. I would love to hear from you guys about it. That said, I'm going to go and do some science. Thank you so very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it, and I will see you next time.